Welcome back to The Big Picture. Vermont's mandatory GMO labeling law goes into effect on July 1st of this year, and producers around the country are responding. But the impacts of that law are stretching far beyond Vermont, with huge companies like General Mills vowing to voluntarily label all their genetically modified food products. That's bad news for Monsanto, but great news for consumers. But it still leaves a lot to be desired in terms of how our food is tested and labeled before it reaches you and me, consumers. And a disturbing new report from Moms Across America shows that it's not just GMOs that are in our food without our knowledge. According to that report, the organization tested 10 wines from California and found that every single one of those wines tested positive for glyphosate, the active ingredient in the weed killer Roundup. Even the wines that came from a vineyard that called itself biodynamic or organic. The World Health Organization deemed glyphosate a probable carcinogen last year, and its use is banned from organic and biodynamic vineyards. So how did the glyphosate get into every single wine? And how worrying should this be for the average wine drinker? Let's ask Zen Honeycutt, Director of Moms Across America. Welcome, Zen.
Thank you for having me on, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us. How did this come to your organization's attention?
Well, actually, a supporter brought this to us. We did not test for wine for glyphosate. A supporter brought it to us because he knew that we are very concerned about the widespread contamination of glyphosate, not just in wine, but in all of our consumer products. We've tested urine, water, breast milk, Pediasure, feeding tube liquid, and all are positive. This is extremely concerning to us.
So basically, you're saying glyphosate is right across the spectrum of our food? I mean, how did it? Well, first of all, how did it get into the organic wines?
So what the scientists and farmers are saying is that glyphosate is contaminating organic farms in a couple of different ways. One is through possibly the manure, the fertilizer, which is made up of manure that is from cows and animals which eat GMO grains, which are sprayed with glyphosate. The other is through the irrigation system. The water has tested positive for glyphosate. And the other one is drift, of course, from neighbors that spray glyphosate in Roundup. And finally, the most unfortunate one is through the rain. And of course, this is something that no farmer anywhere in America can avoid. So we see that the only way to avoid the widespread contamination of glyphosate is to stop using it. And for many farmers, that will just mean that the EPA will have to revoke the license of glyphosate so it's no longer able to be used. So that's what we're calling for. And we have a petition out with care2.org right now to revoke the license of glyphosate, and we're asking the EPA to do that now.
The report mentioned the existence of a bunch of, quote, many other co-formulants. What is a co-formulant, and what impact do they have on people's bodies? What is it? What are they talking about?
That's a great question. So those are the other ingredients in a chemical product. But the problem is the EPA only requires the testing of the one declared active chemical ingredient. And in this case, it's glyphosate. The problem is the other ingredients, of which there are many, have been tested by Sarah Leaning to be 1,000 times more toxic than just glyphosate alone. So we don't even know what those other patented, chemicals are, and we don't know what the levels of those are. So this is extremely concerning that the EPA does not require final formulation testing of any chemical products. So that means a claim that a chemical that is sitting on the shelf that's safe is actually fraud. It's not factual.
Do you think that this is the result of Monsanto and the FDA having this revolving door relationship where executives from Monsanto go to work for FDA and other federal agencies, USDA, and then they go back to Monsanto when they're done? And this is not just Monsanto, by the way. This seems to be all the big chemical companies. Is that at the core of why our government is not protecting us from these chemicals?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. In addition, Evangelos Valientos, who wrote the book Poison Spring, who's a 29-year veteran of the EPA, said that he stood beside the scientists, and they got calls from senators, in fact, that were wanting to have chemicals pushed through, reportedly because these senators were getting funding from the chemical companies. So it is very concerning to us, the connection between politics, the EPA, and our government, and the chemical companies. It is very concerning.
Yeah. In the minute or so we have left, what can consumers do to know that they're not getting glyphosate? I mean, is it a matter of starting to just drink French wines?
Well, we hope that the California regions and all regions will go glyphosate free. So we by exposing this information, we are for organic. We want there to be a change. We cannot do anything about it without knowing what's happening. So we hope that everybody will contact the EPA. We will continue to support organic farmers, which are better not just because of the less pesticides. You know, the conventional lines had 28 times more. Support organic. Restore your gut bacteria by eating fermented foods and probiotic foods, and continue to just watch what you eat. And this is very important.
Yeah,
support organic.
makes perfect sense. Zen Honeycutt, thank you so much for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom.